I didn't cry when I closed the front door. I didn't cry when I dropped the keys through the mail slot. I didn't even cry when I slid the final box of my belongings into the back of my car. But I almost broke the moment I placed the note on the kitchen counter. A single line, written in sharp, steady handwriting, like it had been rehearsed in my head for years. Guess what? The ungrateful daughter just sold your dream. The house was quiet, empty. The walls echoed with memories that weren't mine anymore. This place once, my grandmother's sanctuary, had been hijacked by people who saw me not as family, but as a resource. They were still in Italy, posting smiling selfies in front of the Colosseum, drinking wine in Tuscany in my dime. What they didn't know was that while they were sipping Prosecco, I was selling the very foundation of their illusion. The house was gone. Sold, signed, sealed. Their furniture? Placed in a storage unit across town, already prepaid for 6 months. Their names? Not on a single piece of paper. Not on the deed. Not on the mailbox. And me? I was done being the daughter who paid the bills, kept the peace, and swallowed the guilt. What kind of parents raise their child, only to guilt her into giving it all back? What kind of child stays quiet this long? If you're still watching, maybe you're wondering if I went too far. Or maybe you're someone who knows exactly what it feels like to protect people who never protected you. If you've ever been blamed for setting boundaries just to survive, stick around. This story is for you. Because this isn't revenge. This is freedom, written in black ink on a cold granite counter. And it all started with a phone call they forgot to hang up. People used to tell me I had the perfect family. Holiday cards with matching sweaters. Birthday cakes with my name spelled in glitter frosting. School plays with front row seats saved for the proudest parents alive. On the outside, it looked golden. On the inside, it was conditional. My parents, Richard and Elaine Bennett, had a favorite phrase they liked to say when I was growing up. Everything we do is for you. They said it when they took a second job. They said it when they skipped vacations. They said it when I didn't get to join ballet because it was too expensive. But what they didn't say, what I learned to decode, was the fine print hidden behind every kind gesture. You owe us. I didn't notice it at first. How could I? As a child, you believe your parents are the truth. You think love is supposed to come with tally marks and reminders. Like the time I won a writing competition in 6th grade and my mom said, "We're so proud of you, but remember who drove you to the library every weekend." Or when I got into AP classes and my dad smiled and said, "All that brain power came from us, kiddo. Just don't forget it." It always came with a but. A receipt. Still, I tried to earn it. I got good grades. I never talked back. I made my own lunches to save them time. I watched other kids have messy, imperfect fights with their parents. Mine didn't yell. They just sighed. Disappointed. Quiet. That was worse. But there was one person who didn't make me feel like a transaction: my grandmother, June. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She was the type of woman who kept peppermint candies in her purse and books stacked beside her bed. She taught high school English for over 30 years and could quote Emily Dickinson without blinking. Every other weekend, she'd invite me to her house in Asheville. The moment I walked in, it felt like I could breathe again. No expectations, no silent tests, just warmth. She let me pick the flowers for the dinner table. She let me talk about my dreams without correcting them. She let me be a kid. It wasn't a mansion, just a cozy craftsman house with creaky floors and a garden full of hydrangeas. But to me, it felt like a castle. A place where I wasn't Sarah, the daughter. Just Sarah. One afternoon, when I was 14, I told her, "I think I want to be a lawyer one day." She didn't laugh. She didn't ask how I'd afford law school. She just said, "Then I'll be in the front row when you pass the bar." I never forgot that. Not because it was grand, but because it was the first time someone believed in me without asking for anything back. As the years went on, my parents' words turned sharper. College wasn't an investment, they called it a luxury. Moving out was selfish. But Grandma June? She helped me research scholarships. She slipped $20 bills into my textbooks. She reminded me, again and again, love doesn't come with conditions. If it does, it's not love. At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Not yet. But I would. And when the truth came crashing down years later, when I finally heard what my parents really thought of those weekends in Asheville would become more than just memories. They would become my reason to walk away. But that part of the story is still coming. My grandmother June passed away on a Sunday morning in late October. No warning. No drawn-out illness. Just a quiet, sudden absence that echoed louder than any goodbye. She had made tea the night before. The cup was still on the counter when I arrived. Half full. Still warm. I didn't cry at the funeral. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew if I started, I wouldn't stop. Everyone kept asking if I was okay. My parents didn't. They just asked where Grandma's documents were kept. I should have known then. A few weeks later, we gathered at the attorney's office for the reading of the will. It was just the three of us, me, my parents, and the lawyer. The room smelled like paper and old carpet, and the tension was thicker than the coffee they offered. The lawyer, Mr. Harlan, was kind. Older. Calm. He looked at me before he spoke, like he knew what was coming would change everything. To my granddaughter, Sarah Bennett, he read, I leave my home at 411 Brookside Lane. I leave it free and clear, with love and intention, to the one person who never treated it as entitlement, but as refuge. I heard a sharp intake of breath from my mother. A silence that felt like the moment before a storm. Then he continued. To my daughter, Elaine, and son-in-law, Richard, I leave a monetary gift of $15,000. I hope you find peace and independence in your next chapter. That was it. No loopholes. No co-ownership. Just names and intentions, laid out in ink. I didn't look at my parents right away. I stared at the paper in my hands, willing it to be a mistake. Because I knew in that moment nothing would ever be the same. When I finally glanced up, my mother's expression was unreadable. Flat. Cold. My father? His jaw was locked, the vein near his temple twitching. They said nothing in the elevator. Nothing in the parking lot. But that night, at home, my mother stood in the doorway of my room and said, she was sick. She didn't know what she was doing. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't sure what hurt more, her words, or the fact that I half expected them. From that point forward, they never once called it Sarah's house. It became the family home. Sigh 1. At first, it was subtle. When we renovate the kitchen, when we replace the floors, plans were drawn, budgets were assumed. But not once did anyone ask me what I wanted. They started bringing in their furniture, rearranging rooms, hosting dinners with their friends, people I didn't even know without asking. I was paying the mortgage, the utilities, the repairs. Every bill had my name. But somehow, I was treated like a guest in my own home. When I asked for privacy, my father said, it's not healthy to separate family under one roof. When I locked my bedroom door, my mother called it cold. Boundaries were insults. Independence was disrespect. Ownership, apparently, was an illusion. Still, I stayed silent. Because some part of me still wanted their approval. Still wanted them to say, we're proud of you. But they never did. Not when I got promoted. Not when I landed my biggest real estate deal. Not even when I paid for the new roof they insisted we needed. And every time I pushed back just a little, they reminded me of everything they had given up for me. The same script. Different scenery. And so I did what I'd always done. I swallowed the discomfort. I told myself I was overthinking. That maybe this is just how families work. But something deep inside me, quiet and steady, was starting to shift. It would take time. And one devastating moment of clarity. But I was beginning to understand. They didn't resent the house. They resented that it wasn't theirs. At first, I thought I was being generous, letting them stay, giving them space, trying to be a good daughter. But generosity without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-erasure. And it took me far too long to see that. It started small. My mom repainted the hallway one weekend, didn't ask, didn't even mention it. Just came home to find my favorite sage green walls turned beige. Neutral is more welcoming, she said. I smiled, nodded, told myself it wasn't worth the fight. Then my dad moved my reading chair from the sunroom to the garage. Said it clashed with the new recliner he'd ordered. With my money. They had slowly begun turning my grandmother's house into their kingdom. A place where I paid the bills, but they ruled the space. One night, I came home from work late, exhausted, drained, only to find 6 people in the kitchen drinking wine. Strangers. Neighbors I'd never met. My parents were hosting a neighborhood mixer and forgot to tell me. When I pulled my mom aside and whispered, "Can you just ask next time?" She gave me that look. The one that sliced me in half. "Sarah, don't be rude. This is our home too." Our home. The word stung more than I expected. I started locking my bedroom door. They called it childish. I asked them to stop moving my things around. They called me controlling. Every time I tried to carve out space emotionally, physically they pushed back harder. My bathroom became the guest bathroom. My pantry shelf slowly disappeared. The house had 3 bedrooms, but suddenly I was the one who had to make room when my cousins came to visit. One afternoon, I came back from a weekend business trip and found my childhood piano, grandmother's piano, gone. Sold. Without a word. It was taking up too much space, my dad said casually. We needed room for the new elliptical. Health is wealth, right? I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just stood there, swallowing every word, every ache in my throat. Because deep down, I still believed if I kept the peace, they'd finally see me, value me, love me for who I was. But that day, something inside me cracked. Not shattered, just cracked. Hairline. Barely visible. But once a crack forms, it never disappears. It waits. And so I adjusted, again. Worked later hours to avoid being home. Stayed silent when they threw away my grandmother's books. Kept my head down when they used my bedroom to host out-of-town guests and made me sleep on the pull-out in the den. You're too sensitive, my mom said one night after I asked very calmly not to rearrange my closet again. You never used to be this way. You used to be grateful. I used to be afraid. There's a difference. And even though I hadn't found the courage to confront them yet, even though I was still playing along, some part of me was watching all of it unfold, quietly collecting every small betrayal like beads on a string. I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. But I had started looking at the door differently. It started with a brochure. I found it on the kitchen table one Sunday morning, bright blue, glossy, with a picture of a gondola gliding through Venice. I paused, blinking. My parents weren't exactly world travelers. They hadn't been on a real vacation since I was in high school. My mom walked in, cheerful like she hadn't just thrown out another box of my books last week. We're thinking of taking a trip, she said casually, like she was announcing a grocery run. Europe. Maybe Italy. Maybe 2 months. I stared at her. Seriously? Well, it's our anniversary soon, and we've earned this. A reset. For our marriage. For our souls, she added with a dramatic hand flourish. I didn't know what to say. Part of me thought, good. Maybe I'd get the house to myself for a while. But then came the kicker. We'll need a little help to make it happen. And by a little, they meant me. Of course they did. My dad joined the conversation that evening like it had already been decided. You know, Sarah, the equity in this house could really unlock opportunities for all of us. A home equity loan might be the smartest move. I nearly dropped my glass. You mean my house? I asked, careful to keep my voice steady. The house that's in my name, the one Grandma left to me? He didn't flinch. Don't be so territorial. It's the family home. Your grandmother would have wanted all of us to benefit. My jaw tightened. I'm not taking out a loan on my house so you can eat gelato in Rome. There was a pause. Then my mom sighed deeply, her signature guilt move. We've sacrificed so much, Sarah. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for us raising you. For all the support we gave Grandma when she was sick, it's the least you could do. The least I could do. That phrase echoed in my head for days. And somehow, despite all my instincts, I gave in. Not the loan, no. That was my line. But I offered to help with some of the costs. I booked their flights, reserved their hotels, wired spending money, all on my credit card. Because somewhere in me, some fractured, aching part, still wanted to prove I was good. Still wanted to hear, thank you, we're proud of you. Instead I got, the rooms you picked aren't very central. Why didn't you book the one with the balcony? We'll be walking too much here. Can you change the itinerary? They were across the ocean, and I still couldn't breathe. Every morning I woke up to a new complaint in my inbox. Photos of them smiling in Tuscany, captions like, finally enjoying life after all we've given. And I paid for it all. Not just in dollars, but in self-respect, in silence, in nights lying awake, wondering why I was always the one bending. And deep down, something began to shift. Not a scream, not a storm, just a quiet unraveling, like a rope that had been pulled too tight for too long, finally starting to fray. It was a Tuesday afternoon in June, one of those muggy North Carolina days where the air sticks to your skin like cling wrap. I had just finished showing 3 homes back to back, my feet sore, my head pounding. All I wanted was silence. Instead, I came home to a slow drip under the kitchen sink. A leak. Of course. I sighed, crouched down, opened the cabinet. The wood was damp. Swollen. The faucet installed last year by my father, reluctantly, was clearly failing. Again. I didn't have the energy to fight it. I just needed the warranty information. And unfortunately, that meant calling him. So I did. 3 rings. Then a click. A bit of static. Then my dad's voice, distant, faint, muffled by bad international reception. Yeah? Hey, it's me, I said. Do you remember where you put the paperwork for the kitchen faucet? It's leaking again. A pause. Then a sigh, long and theatrical. Top drawer in the filing cabinet, under kitchen, left side. Got it, thanks. We're about to go to dinner. Somewhere near the river. I forced my voice into politeness. How's Italy? Expensive, he said flatly. We'll talk later. The call ended. Or so I thought. I was about to hang up when I heard rustling. The phone hadn't disconnected. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the red button. But something made me wait. And then I heard it. Who was that? My mother's voice asked. Sarah, my father replied. Whining about the sink again. I froze. She's always got some problem. Always something wrong with that house. My chest tightened. I still don't understand why June left her the property, my mother said. She's just going to ruin it. We'll deal with it when we're back, my father said. We need to have that conversation, about the deed, about retirement. My ears rang. She's been a burden from the start, he continued. College, bills, now this house. She thinks she deserves it? They laughed. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She'll cave, my mom said confidently. She always does. Just play the guilt card, family obligation. She folds every time. If that doesn't work, my dad added, we'll talk nursing homes, medical expenses. She's scared of abandonment. There was silence on their end, just the sound of silverware, restaurant chatter. But inside me, something was splintering. I grabbed my second phone. Hit record. If push comes to shove, my mom said lightly, we're living there anyway. Possession is 9/10 of the law. She's too soft to evict us. We'll take the master bedroom, my dad added. Why should she get the biggest room when she's barely home? They kept talking, plotting, calculating, as if I were a business deal, a problem to be solved, a barrier between them and what they believed was rightfully theirs. I sat frozen, on the floor, phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline and a weapon all at once. 15 minutes. That's how long the call stayed live. And in those 15 minutes, every illusion I had about what love was, about what family meant, shattered. I didn't hang up. Eventually, the line just went dead. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word from that call. Every laugh. Every calculated suggestion. She's been a burden from the start. That line looped in my head like a broken record. And somewhere between 2 a.m. and dawn, I stopped crying. Something inside me clicked. Not rage. Not revenge. Something colder. Clearer. Focus. If they thought I was weak, pliable, easy to guilt, they didn't know me at all. I called in sick the next morning. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. Not a list of grievances. A list of actions. Step 1. Call Patricia Weller. She was a family law attorney I'd worked with on a few property closings. Efficient. Sharp. Zero fluff. I told her everything. Left out the emotions. Just the facts. The house is entirely in my name, I said. No co-ownership, no rent paid, no written agreements. They've lived there for 4 years. She didn't hesitate. They have no legal claim. You're the sole owner, period. You have every right to sell, evict, relocate. You don't even need to give a reason. It was the first moment in days that I felt like I could exhale. Step 2. Call Marcus. Top real estate agent in our firm. Trusted, discreet. We met for coffee the next morning. I didn't explain everything just enough. I need to sell my house, I said. Quietly. Fast. No open houses. No lawn signs. He blinked. Is this personal? It's survival, I said simply. He didn't ask again. We mapped out a strategy. Private showings only. Targeted buyers. Quick close. Yes, I'd take a hit on the price. But freedom? Freedom was worth more than 15% below market. Step 3. Logistics. I made a spreadsheet, of course I did. Itemized every room in the house. Marked every item as mine, theirs, or questionable ownership. If I couldn't prove it was mine, it went in their column. I wanted no gray areas. No reasons for them to come back. I booked a moving company. Reserved a storage unit under their names. Paid 6 months in advance. Then I started packing. And, as I boxed up my life, I came across a letter. Tucked in the back of an old cookbook my grandmother had left me. Her handwriting. Shaky. Familiar. Dear Sarah, it began. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I want you to know this house is yours not because you need it, but because you earned it. Your parents always believed they were entitled to whatever they wanted. But you've always known the value of things, including yourself. Don't let them take that from you. I stopped breathing. The tears came again, but this time, not from grief. This was resolve. Because now, it wasn't just about reclaiming the house. It was about reclaiming my place in it. My name. My voice. My peace. I updated the spreadsheet that night. Crossed off completed tasks. Labeled the final folder. Exit plan. This wasn't revenge in the way people imagined it. It wasn't fire and fury. It was colder than that. Calmer. And far more permanent. Because when someone calls you a burden, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly remove yourself from the weight they think they own. The thing no one tells you about disappearing is how quiet it is. Not the dramatic, movie kind of disappearing, but the real kind. The kind where you move through your own home like a ghost, silently packing boxes of memories that no longer belong to you. The house had never felt emptier. And yet, it had never been more mine. I moved quickly. Efficiently. Each night after work, I'd come home and pack for hours. Careful labels. color-coded tape. My belongings in one section of the garage. My parents in another. And in between? A clear line, both literal and emotional. Marcus worked his magic. He found a couple relocating from Seattle tech professionals with a newborn on the way. They wanted something quiet, with character. They loved the old oak floors. The magnolia tree in the front yard. The kind of details I once thought I'd pass down to my own children. They never asked about the current occupants. Marcus never mentioned them. That was part of the plan. Private showings only. No signage, no online photos with dates. We called it a stealth closing. And it worked. Within 3 weeks, we had an offer $925,000. Not full market value, but close enough. Freedom, it turns out, comes slightly below asking price. The closing date was set. Paperwork signed. Escrow opened. It was happening. And still, part of me hesitated. Not because I doubted the decision, but because the grief was real. Not just for the house, but for the version of me who had once believed this place could hold something safe. The night before the movers came, I walked through each room one last time. The living room where Grandma June and I used to drink tea during thunderstorms. The kitchen where she taught me how to make peach cobbler from scratch. The garden where she whispered, "Don't let the world harden you." I whispered back, "I won't. I promise." The movers arrived right on time, clean uniforms, polite smiles. They loaded my things with care, separating them from my parents' boxes, just like I asked. The second truck marked for the storage facility was colder, more clinical. Their possessions, boxed and sealed, were sent to a unit 2 towns over. I prepaid 6 months. Left them the access code. No explanations. No apologies. Just logistics. That afternoon, I signed the final documents at the title office. The notary slid the check across the table. And I felt still. Not triumphant. Not sad. Just still. Later that evening, I returned to the house one final time. Empty now. No furniture. No sounds. Just the echo of my footsteps on the hardwood. In the kitchen, I placed the note where they couldn't miss it, right on the counter, under the soft glow of the pendant light. Guess what? The ungrateful daughter just sold your dream. No signature. No goodbye. I took one last look around, closed the front door, dropped the keys through the mail slot, and walked to my car without turning back. It didn't feel like revenge. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like closing a book that should have ended years ago. But no one had the courage to finish. Until now. For 9 days, there was silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that buzzes in your ears. The kind that feels like the sky holding its breath before the thunder hits. I had moved into a temporary apartment 2 hours away, furnished, quiet, anonymous. No photos on the walls. No mail addressed to Sarah Bennett. Just space. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb. Checked emails once a day. No messages from them. Not a word. I should have felt relief. But instead, I was waiting. Like standing in the eye of a hurricane. On the 10th day, it began. The first voicemail came at 8:12 a.m. My dad. Short, cold. Sarah, what the hell is going on? Our key doesn't work. Call me, now. Then another, an hour later. We came home and the house is empty. Empty, Sarah. Where are you? You better explain this. Then my mom. Sweetheart, this isn't funny. We're worried. Just call us, okay? The texts started next. From both of them. Then from my aunt. Then from a number I didn't recognize, probably my dad using the hotel concierge phone. By noon, the tone had shifted. How dare you do this to us? Do? This was our home too. We took care of you your whole life. We're talking to a lawyer. I sat on the floor of my apartment, phone buzzing beside me like a ticking bomb, and felt nothing. No guilt. No panics. Just a strange, icy clarity. They were exactly who I knew they were. At 3:47 p.m., I got a text from Jamie, me coworker and friend. Your parents just showed up at the office. Loud. Boss told them to leave. Want me to call you? I typed a reply. Thanks. I'm okay. Family drama. Will explain later. That night, my boss called directly. I don't know the full story, Sarah. But they made serious accusations. Said you sold their house without permission. I took a slow breath. It wasn't their house. It was mine, fully deeded. Left to me by my grandmother. I let them live there out of kindness. But I overheard them plotting to force me to sign it over, so I sold it. There was a long pause. Well, she said calmly, they've been banned from the premises. You're under no obligation to explain yourself. Take whatever time you need. That conversation lifted a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. The next few days brought more attempts, emails, voicemails, even a handwritten letter left at my old firm. Each message was a variation of the same script. Guilt. Denial. Blame. They said I had misunderstood. That I'd overreacted. That they'd only said those things because they were stressed. But never not once did they say they were sorry. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. I forwarded the most aggressive emails to Patricia, my attorney. She confirmed again. I was within every legal right. Let them talk to whatever lawyer they wanted. I was done engaging. Because the storm had come. It had raged. And I had survived it. They thought I'd run. Thought I'd break. But they forgot one thing. I didn't disappear out of fear. I disappeared out of choice. And now that I was gone, I had no intention of looking back. It was a Thursday morning when the text came. We need to talk. Coffee shop on Maple Street. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. If you don't show up, we're coming to your office again. And this time, we won't leave quietly. No. Hi. No. Love, Dad. Just a threat wrapped in politeness. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I did what I always do when the emotional air gets too heavy. I called Patricia. You don't have to meet them, she said gently. Legally, you've done nothing wrong. We can file for a restraining order if they show up again. I almost said yes. Almost let her handle it with papers and signatures and distance. But something in me wanted to look them in the eyes. Not for closure. Not for peace. But because this time, I needed to say things they couldn't talk their way around. So I agreed. Friday morning, I dressed carefully. Professional. Crisp. Navy blazer, no softness. The outfit was armor. I arrived at the daily grind at 10:15. Late enough to make a point. Early enough to still control the room. The cafe was busy, but not loud, just enough background noise to muffle raised voices if needed. I spotted them in the corner. My mother stirred her coffee like it had personally offended her. My father sat stiff, arms crossed, jaw tight. I walked straight to the table and stood. Robert. Elaine. I said their names like they were strangers. My mother flinched. My father narrowed his eyes. Sit down, he said, low and sharp. I'm not here to take orders, I replied, setting my phone recording on the table. We'll have this conversation on equal terms. Or not at all. I sat. They glanced at the phone. Is that really necessary? My mother asked. Given our history? Yes. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my father leaned forward. What you did was unforgivable. You sold our home. No, I said calmly. I sold my home. The one Grandma left to me. The one you tried to manipulate me into handing over. Their faces shifted. Shock. Anger. Denial. I hit play. Their voices filled the space between us. She's always been a burden. Just use guilt. We'll take the master bedroom. She's too soft to evict us. I paused the recording. Silence. My mother's face had gone pale. My father's eyes darted to the phone, then to me. That was a private conversation, he growled. That I was still on the line for, I said. And recorded legally, you didn't hang up. My mother leaned in, her voice shaking. You misunderstood. We were stressed, traveling, we didn't mean. Stop, I cut her off. Don't lie to me again. My voice wasn't loud. But it didn't need to be. You lived in that house rent-free for 4 years. I paid every bill, every repair. And all you saw was what else you could take. My father slammed his hand on the table. We raised you. You owe us. I stood slowly. No. I don't owe you my peace. Or my home. Or my silence. I picked up the phone. Your things are in storage. You'll get the code by mail. Please don't contact me again unless it's through an attorney. Sarah, wait, my mother pleaded. I looked at them one last time. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see parents. I saw 2 people who had mistaken love for ownership. Goodbye. I walked out into the sunlight. The door closed behind me with a soft chime. And just like that, the storm was over. But the healing? That was just beginning. I didn't feel victorious after the coffee shop. I didn't walk out with fireworks in my chest or some dramatic swell of music in my head. What I felt was quieter. Like the sound a weight makes when it slips off your shoulders after being there so long, you forgot it was crushing you. I moved into my new place the following month. A modest condo in Nashville. 2 bedrooms. Balcony facing a small park. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. Every decision. Every wall color. Every fork in the drawer I chose it. There were no antique chairs from Grandma's collection. No floral wallpaper to preserve out of guilt. No one rearranging my space when I wasn't looking. It felt blank. And somehow, that was comforting. Blank was a beginning. Work became my anchor again. I transferred to our firm's Nashville office, and to my surprise, the fresh start reignited something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. I started working more closely with first-time homebuyers, young couples, divorced women, older clients starting over. There was something tender and powerful in helping someone step into a place they could finally call theirs. One client, Maya, recently separated, looked at me after signing her closing docs and said, "You explained everything like you wanted me to understand, not like I was just a signature to process." That stuck with me. Because I did want people to understand. I wanted them to feel empowered. Not manipulated. Not pressured. Not like I had. In therapy, we started to explore that. Dr. Palmer, quiet, sharp-eyed, gentle when needed, looked at me one session and said, "Sarah, what your parents did wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was financial abuse." He blinked. The words hung in the air like smoke. Thick. Unexpected. "It's common," she added, "but rarely named, especially in families. They used guilt, obligation, and fear to control your access to your own resources. That's abuse, Sarah. Just in a different costume." It took me weeks to fully absorb that. But once I did, I couldn't unsee it. Not in my story. And not in the stories of the people around me. That's when the idea came. I pitched a workshop to my firm. A free program for first-time homebuyers, especially women, on recognizing financial manipulation in family dynamics. How to spot guilt tactics. How to protect your name on a deed. How to say no without justifying your entire existence. We called it Home on Your Terms. The first session had 12 people. The second had 30. By the fourth, we had to switch to a larger space. People cried. People vented. People nodded with wide eyes as I shared parts of my own story, not names, just truths. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was reclamation. I wasn't trying to erase what happened. I was using it. To rebuild. To reclaim. To redefine what it meant to be a daughter. A woman. A homeowner. A survivor. One who didn't just walk away, but walked forward. It had been almost a year since I dropped the keys through the mail slot. 12 months since I walked out of that house for the last time. The echo of my footsteps fading into hardwood, the note left behind like a closing statement I never got to say out loud. Since then, my life had been quieter. Not easier. Just lighter. I had traded chaos for clarity, guilt for stillness. And yet, sometimes, on quiet Sunday mornings when the coffee was hot and the light was soft through my new kitchen window, a piece of me would drift back. To the garden, to the scent of my grandmother's lavender, to the version of me that still believed people who hurt you would eventually apologize. They didn't. But healing, I learned, doesn't require an apology. It only requires a decision. It was on the anniversary of the house sale that I decided to visit her grave. The sky was overcast, but dry. I brought her favorite pink tulips, not too bright, not too loud, just enough. I sat beside her headstone for a long time without speaking. The cemetery was quiet except for birds and the sound of distant wind. Then I said, simply, I think I finally understand why you did it. Why she left the house to me. Why she didn't explain it in person. Why she trusted me to figure it out when the time was right. She didn't want to give me shelter. She wanted to give me choice. Choice to build something new. To break cycles. To say enough and mean it. Before I left, I placed the tulips against the stone and whispered, I'm not a burden. I'm not broken. And I'm not theirs anymore. That night, back in my condo, I took out the last unopened box from the move. The one labeled Misk, June. Inside were small things old postcards, a necklace, a faded photo of her holding me on the front porch. And, at the very bottom, a brass key. Heavy. Ornate. The original skeleton key to the front door of her house. I held it for a long time. Then, without thinking, I walked to my balcony and held it over the rail. And let it go. Watched it tumble 2 stories down into the wild grass below. Out of reach. Out of use. It wasn't anger. It wasn't some grand statement. It was closure. Because some doors are meant to be locked. Permanently. So you can finally open the right ones. And as I stood there in the soft breeze, I realized something. The most painful part wasn't losing the house. It was believing for so long that I had to keep earning love to stay in it. Now, I know better. And if you're listening to this, if you've ever had to walk away from family, from legacy, from everything you were told you should protect, just to protect yourself, know this. That wasn't selfish. That was brave. If this story found a place in you, hit subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. What's one lock you've finally closed? Thank you for listening. And to the girl I used to be, you didn't just survive. You chose to be free.